Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome. You can totally sit with us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to She's a Full-On Monet. I am your host, Kelly, and I am here, as always, with Megan.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Kelly.
Hello.
Good to see you. I just realized my microphone was facing not me, that away. I was like, oh, I wonder if she had any issue before hearing me, but hopefully this is better.
Yeah, it sounds the same. So must be good microphones.
It was literally facing the other way. Anyway, I'm here. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. So we are talking about something interesting today. We were talking off camera a moment ago about how we could probably go on this topic for a really long time. So we'll try to rein ourselves in.
It makes me, once people hear what the topic is, it's going to make me sound real dramatic, but it's true. It's an interesting topic. So
yeah. So we're going to talk today about argument styles, people's personal, comfort zone style of arguing or having a disagreement, and how knowing that style can benefit your relationship or all the relationships in your life, I guess, because we tend to argue with people, not just our spouse. That's a pretty narrow view. I've had my share of arguments with people who are not in a romantic relationship with me. So,
oh boy, have we ever? We're mothers, aren't we? Not? Don't we have to argue with little people all the time about things that seem? Yeah, I just find this whole thing interesting because I wonder, and I'm curious if all of this stuff is figuring out your argument style, figuring out what sleep animal you are, figuring out what your love language is. Is this all new? Because I don't ever remember hearing about, not as I was a kid, I would pick up on that, but I feel because my parents were a colorful bunch of people together when they would get into arguments. And I feel it was because they were never understanding of each other's argument style. They were never understanding of each other's love language. And I'm just curious, thinking about it right now, if this is something that's kind of new and come of age where people are figuring themselves out on such a very specific level, because it serves you so well once you understand it,
Yeah, it's really interesting because this is something I hear about now on an almost daily basis, not argument style, but self-awareness, self-reflection, self-improvement. Maybe it's just what the algorithm is curating for me because I'm very much into that. But I hear about this kind of stuff. It comes up on my social feed or in my news articles every single day. And I don't remember growing up, my father ever talking about this kind of stuff. And I know I had briefly a stepmother who was really into self-improvement and what they used to call self-help books. And she would take me with her to the library or the bookstore. And we would, back then it was Walden Books. If you remember, if you can go back that far to.
Don't even know what that is.
Yeah. It was a precursor to books at Barnes and Noble. And she would let me look in my section because I'm a big reader. And she would go to the self-help section and find all these books about fixing relationships and parenting and all just different kinds of things. She enjoyed reading those. But my dad, not that he wouldn't make fun of it, but you could tell he was thinking it was nonsense. Mm-hmm. I could tell as a kid, he was like, oh, here she goes again, another book. But I find that I find those types of things incredibly interesting. And I read a lot of fiction, but I also read a lot of nonfiction. And I read what would have been considered self-help books. I read finance books. I read business books, all different kinds of books. And I find them incredibly helpful. I was just reading one about habits and how to change habits. And it was so interesting. I was reading sections of it aloud to my partner.
What book is it?
It's called Atomic Habits. It's
just finished that.
I
finished it. You know what my best method was, because I love to read, but I lacked the time, was where it's not book on tape, but essentially
an audio book,
phone. Yeah.
Or
and
a
I
Kindle.
would listen to that. Oh man, it changed so much. That book, I highly recommend to everybody, because it opens your mind up to things that you were oh yeah, shoot. I loved it.
If you are trying to stop bad habits or start good habits. It could be fitness, it could be business, it could be relationships, whatever it is. That book is crucial. I think everyone can benefit from those kinds of
Everybody.
books.
It's just understanding why your habits are your habits, and if you can change, just further understanding yourself. I just find this whole thing fascinating because the divorce rate is still high. And I just think that the more you understand your partner and the more you understand yourself and the more you understand what you're looking for in a partner, the longevity is more there. Like it's a more of a better partnership than like, I like him, she likes me, like I know there's more to it than that. I just feel like the more you really know about your relationship style, your argument style, your love language, all these things are so beneficial. I just don't ever remember hearing about it at all growing up. And
no, me neither.
I wonder if it would help people get their needs more met and understand each other more and feel more heard and more seen in their relationships,
Yeah. Well, I find that the more self-aware that I am, and not just self-aware, but aware of different styles, different people's styles, and why somebody might be behaving the way that they're behaving. The more I know about that, the more like compassion I have when my interactions with other people. And the more that I have time to kind of like reframe my responses. So I think it's helpful across the board, like in the way that I interact with just everyone. It helps me to kind of figure out other people's communication styles, love languages, argument styles, and just kind of work my behavior in a way that makes that relationship deeper and the connection stronger, whether it's my kids or friends or my partner or, whatever.
Yeah. No, the argument style goes all across the board. It can go with, an employee to another employee to a boss, friend to friend, anybody. Because like you pointed out, you've had issues with people who you are not in a relationship with. So, knowing your argument style and knowing the different types is just a further cooler way to understand humans as a creature. I always find it fascinating. So
yeah, I do too.
Let's chat.
So obviously every person has a style or a ingrained way of communicating when they're trying to conflict resolve. Conflict resolution is one of the biggest skill sets I think that we can teach our kids growing up, because it really changes every aspect of their life. They're going to have conflicts at work. They're going to have conflicts with friends in school. They're going to have conflicts with partners. And if we can teach really healthy conflict resolution skills and just give them a lot of tools in their toolbox to use when they get into conflict with people, then they're going to benefit from that long term, like for the rest of their life. And so one of those things is just the way that people speak to each other, or the mental state that they come at an argument in. And I think that is, when you're aware of it, if you're not happy with the way that you and I'm going to use partner since that's kind of what the article we're talking about is about. If you're not happy with the way that you and your partner communicate when you're in an argument or when you're having a conflict resolution, knowing why you might behave that way and why they're behaving the way they're behaving, and that it can be changed is really crucial, I think.
Yes, because often I feel I've heard this term before, caveman brain. Often I feel like we have caveman brain when we're in an argument. It's just all we think. We're thinking on pure emotion and anger and all these things that oftentimes we're looking for little moments in conversations to make it feel like a personal attack, and it's like the more you understand the other person, the less you'll feel like it's you versus them. It's really you guys versus the problem in reality, but we lose sight of that when we're angry or when we're not feeling heard or seen or understood. So knowing that everyone is different, and oftentimes two people do have the same argument style and they're in a relationship, and that's fabulous, but sometimes they're not, and sometimes they clash, and understanding that is that person, and they came into the relationship like that, and you are a completely different individual, and coming together and figuring out how to get through this problem without it becoming super personal is maturity. But it's something that if you understand this early on, it will save a lot of heartache, because it often feels very personal. It's hard not to feel personal when you have And these can be small disagreements, but sometimes it can be really big and it can feel personal, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we're discussing something with our partner that we have different opinions on, we tend to go into it thinking that the purpose of that conflict is to get our way, right? To win the argument, to get things the way that we want them to be. But if it was really that, then the argument would be very simple. One person would be yelling yes, and the other person would be yelling no, and that would be that's where it would end. But it's really about making the other person understand how you're feeling and how whatever the issue is makes you feel, how you're reacting to it, what's at stake for you. And I think so it is always deeper than that, and always does feel very personal, even if you're arguing about something relatively silly. Or in hindsight, you would say was silly. It at the time, it can feel like a personal attack. So we definitely want to be aware of that and communicate in a style that's actually productive.
Yes, because really, once you think about it, it's you guys versus the problem. It totally shifts your mindset on how you're going about everything. Because if you're in it to just win, it's a losing battle. I'm sorry. It's never going to work out. The other person's just going to feel super defeated and not heard. And then it's going to create a toxic, continuous environment of argument style that is not healthy long-term. And then you're going to need to have a hard reset at some point, whether that's through counseling or, listening to this podcast and realizing that that's what's up. It's understanding that it's not about understanding and then like giving into your other person's style, but it is certainly about understanding that it is more than just you in this argument. And it's more than just you and your feelings and your insights and your perspective, Yeah,
I think as we talk about the different ways of arguing today, if everyone listening to this is just mindful to try to kind of recognize themselves in the examples and the descriptions that we give. I mean, the first thing of changing a behavior that you're not happy with in yourself is owning up to that behavior, recognizing it in yourself and owning that. That's the first, step to making any kind of reasonable change. And then you can hopefully shift your argument style to one of the other more productive ways, just, kind of by taking a moment, taking a step back from the high emotion zone and asking yourself if you're responding the way that you want to respond.
Absolutely. And sometimes your partner can often bring things up in an argument, like bring up your argument style and paint it in a negative way. And you'll start to feel like maybe, is there something wrong with me, or am I the problem? No, it could just be your argument styles are clashing and you're not getting your point across in a way that your partner is hearing it to where there's actual change. Sometimes we feel in those moments that one needs to be right and one needs to be wrong, and depending on your dynamic with your partner, it can be very one way all the time. So knowing your personal style and then maybe recognizing things in your partner's personal style, and it'll help you maybe shift the conversation a little bit, because we all know that there's so many ways to say the same thing, and we receive them in different forms based on how they're said, right? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can tell someone, I'd like you to leave. You can tell someone to get out. You can tell someone to get the fuck out. And those are all accomplishing the same thing, but they really, give a very different emotional response to the person on the receiving end of that. So I think as we all kind of should be in the habit of, we have to kind of imagine ourselves as the version of ourselves that we most want to be, and how that person responds to conflict, how that person relates to the people, the loved ones in their lives, even in moments of high emotional intensity. And we have to hold on to that image of who we want to be to make sure that our behavior is getting us closer to that goal of being, the best version of ourselves. Because nobody's perfect. Everyone is going to have their moments, but we should at least be working towards a goal.
Absolutely. And I mean, the end idea is honestly like it should be a thing where your partner does not personally want to hurt you or make you feel bad or make you feel like less than. They're just also hurt and acting out. So when you really think about it and go, they're not trying to hurt me, they're just trying to be understood. It takes the person the being taking it so personal a little less, and then you hear what the person's actual problem is, but if you just feel like you're being attacked, you're never going to actually hear the problem. So understanding the person's argument style and knowing that you guys are both just trying to feel the same thing, heard, understood, and don't want that same result for the next time to happen, then you guys are good. So yeah, let's break down these argument styles.
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue into the first argument style of attacking. Attacking is a conflict style that, first of all, it's extremely unproductive. And I know from personal experience, because I've had people in my life who have this conflict style, it makes you not want to go to them with issues. So if I have someone in my life who I care very much about, who has an attacking style of conflict, I'm less likely to come to them and say, hey, you know what, this behavior that is going on is hurting my feelings. Or, hey, I'd like to do this. What do you think about that? I want to go back to school. I want to, plant a vegetable garden. Well, it doesn't have to be something emotionally charged, but if you're used to having that person respond in an attacking way, it makes you less likely to bring up issues when they're small. And then, like most people, we don't talk about something when it's small and manageable. We wait for it to build up and explode, and then we really have a big explosive fight. So that's not great. But
No.
Attacking style is basically when you call someone else out on their behavior and what they're doing is wrong, and you are right. And most of the sentences when you're in this kind of attacking style will start with you always, you never. It's a very negative based communication style where there's not a lot of room for compromise because you're painting the other person as completely wrong. Excuse me. It is the way that a lot of people express anger and frustration, and that's understandable. But if you are really careful with your word choice, sometimes you can say the exact same thing without it feeling so much like a personal attack. Yeah. Instead of saying, you always do this, say, when you do this, I feel that kind of way, is a totally different delivery of the same information.
Absolutely. It's basically like personally attacking somebody and telling them they're doing something versus saying, this is how you make me feel, but it's the same way. And I mean, if your real result is to hear your side from a real, truthful, genuine, deep down area, like I'm not there to argue 50 times about the same thing. I'm there to argue about it. If we have to argue about it once, for you to understand my point and for that situation to be learned from, because that's really what it's about. So, if you want them to learn and hear you, if you are attacking them, there's already that wall being built up. They're not going to listen to you. They're not going to hear anything you're saying, and they're not going to hear it from a real open, truthful standpoint because they feel attacked. That's all they feel is attacked. And there's only room for people attacking back or to feel like they have to defend themselves. And it never works out. So you never want to go in with you, even if it feels silly. Even therapists say, instead of saying you, say, I feel this way when you do this. It's like the classic thing you hear if you go to couples counseling, because no one ever wants, the minute you hear you, the walls are being built up. Even if it's real.
It feels very accusatory. And nobody likes that. Nobody responds well to that. So, I mean, even if it's something as simple as you never load the dishwasher, that may be very true. And you may respond to that by saying, I have asked them to do it nicely, like 27 million gazillion times. That could very well be true, but pointing out how, hey, when you don't help with things that are basic that you're capable of helping with, it makes me feel like you don't value my time, or something like that. That's a little bit more productive, because the attacking style is just generally not productive.
No one listens to it, because immediately, instead of hearing what the problem is, they're thinking about you're attacking them. And is that true in their perspective? And they immediately feel like they need to either agree with you, which doesn't happen very much, or disagree with you and defend themselves. And then it's not about the problem anymore. It's about, you defending yourself. Then the problem's been lost and the message has been lost, and it's a mess. So
I mean, when you say things like that are usually a clear exaggeration, the other person, like you said, immediately dismisses what you said, or their brain is already working on the next argument style, which is defensiveness, because that's the response to the attacking argument style.
Yep.
So yeah, defensiveness happens very naturally, especially when you are dealing with an attacking argument style on the opposite side. But it's human nature. We want to defend ourselves. We want to set the record straight as it is, and provide like more clarification on, actually, I loaded the dishwasher last week on Tuesday or whatever. And it just becomes an issue of like trying to keep score and not taking responsibility for any of the things that were said by the other person, maybe because they weren't said in the most productive or healthy way, but the response in a defensive way is just as unproductive.
Absolutely. Because the other person, they're not really looking for that. They're not looking for an example of them being wrong. They're just looking to feel like heard. And it's so not about the dishwasher at that moment. You know, it's like a wife complaining about you never spending time and going out on dates. And then, the husband or wife referencing a date they went on like 2 years ago. It's like, oh, pardon me for bringing it up. I forgot about that date 2 years ago. That's not what it's about. It's really about, I miss spending genuine quality time with you, and it's been a long time, and I'd like you to notice that too. If you immediately defend it, which is human nature, but if you defend it by something even super specific, and even if it's right, it's still it's not going to get your point across either.
No, it doesn't
create more mess.
It doesn't leave any room for actually solving the problem. Either one of these argument styles doesn't leave room for solving the problem. If the other person said, you never load the dishwasher, okay, that's not productive. But the response to that could also be, I'm so sorry you feel that way. I felt like I was, but I will definitely start doing it more often. And of course, nobody wants to say that when someone just came at them with "you never," but
no. But we can all agree. I mean, if you're in a relationship, you don't even have to be married to feel this way. It's all about choosing your battles. And if you pick every single little battle, then it's going to be a long road for you, that relationship. It's about choosing the ones that really truly matter to you. If this is something deeper than the dishwasher, if it's about really the lack of help that you've been consistently not getting for months on end, then that's what you bring up. Because really all your partner's hearing, understandably so, is that they don't load the dishwasher. And you feel like, wow, like opportunity missed there, and you don't feel heard. But at the same time, you also weren't very honest and upfront about the real problem.
Because, okay, say your partner does start loading that dishwasher, but doing absolutely nothing else.
You're still pissed off.
And you're still mad. And then they say, but I did what you said. No. But why are you still mad?
And that happens a lot in marriages. Like, oh, you didn't take out the trash. Oh, well, I took out the trash. Oh, cool. But you left the dog poop on the way out to the trash. Well, you didn't say anything about the dog poop. It's such a mess. Say what you really are like. And again, no one likes to have that conversation. I've learned that if I wait until it's like boiled up to a point of explosion to really express how I genuinely feel to my husband, he is already at a place of defensiveness that it's never going to be open enough for him to listen. I've also learned that just randomly coming up to him and talking to him about a problem is also never fun. But if he's in a calm mental state, he's willing and open to hear what my actual problem is. If I present it in a way that's not attacking, that I've thought through it, like we're both very like attacking and also defensive at the same time. And we clash, and we've been married forever, I feel, and we're still working through it. I literally just had a problem with him because he's very anti-Valentine's Day, and we just had Valentine's Day. And I'm like so about Valentine's Day, but you can't force your partner to be about it. Right. So, I kind of like, I knew if he did nothing and I waited until the day was over, I would boil over and explode on him and just be angry. So I took him aside on like the day before Valentine's Day and calmly expressed, hey, I've noticed that I'm having these feelings. I don't want to like, bombard you with them on Valentine's Day. But I'm going to be real honest. If Valentine's Day comes and goes and it's just like a Monday, I'm going to be pissed, And he kind of laughed it off, but also he was appreciative of the fact that I knew myself enough to know that if I waited to see how it would go, that it would be a mess. And I didn't want to argue on Valentine's Day.
Right. Because if you know that's not his thing and you don't let him know what your expectations are, you're setting him up for failure.
Yep.
But
no one likes to talk about confrontation, but that's real life, people. You got to talk about it, and you got to figure out what your argument styles are personally and with your partner, so that you avoid these like bombs that go off unnecessarily,
Yeah. And we, first of all, it helps a lot, as we've said in many other episodes, it helps a lot to assume that the other person has your best interest at heart. If you go into things thinking that it's, a battle, then it is going to be a battle. If you go into things thinking, oh, wow, he isn't helping me, but I know he cares. I wonder why that's going on. Maybe I haven't expressed myself enough, or maybe he doesn't see it, or maybe he doesn't want to do it and mess it up. Let's talk about it. That's a very different conversation than just sitting there and seething while the house gets messier and messier. And now you're doing the passive aggressive thing where you just stop doing everything and just sit and wait to see I want to see how long it'll take him to do it. And then nothing is getting done and the sink is full of dishes. And
that has worked out for 0 women.
Zero.
Because we've all thought about it. Like, I wonder if I just didn't do the laundry, like what would happen? You know what would happen? The laundry would sit in piles all week and kids would grab socks when needed and pants when needed, because like, that's what they like. And then you're just like going to explode on everyone one
right.
day.
And your partner has no idea that you're upset about anything. And they're watching everything get messier and messier until they finally say, hey, it's really messy in here. And you go, I'm glad you brought it up. I've been waiting to talk about it for a hot minute. And you go. And he's just like standing there with their mouth hanging open, like, what just happened?
Like the most loaded question I've ever asked in my life. Like, they didn't expect it. But I'm always wondering, like, is it really that unexpected? I mean, like, come on, like
I will point out that people are less aware than we think they are.
Oh, like, man, Dan's home from work on Monday and he's gone most of the time, and I run a lot of shows, and he saw just how much I do, and I'm like, yeah, like, you would have no idea now, would you? Because I don't complain about it, but at the same time, it's like, why should I have to fold this 50th thing of laundry? You haven't folded one. We all want to not do it, but it's just, it never works. It never works out. They don't look at it and go, you know what? She's been working a lot. She's tired. I'm going to fold that laundry. If it's not already
rare,
it's not going to become a habit. So
that's a very rare thing for someone to proactively do things that unless you and them have the same love language, then by all means, like, that's amazing. Kudos.
That's the other thing, is my love language that I provide to my family is like acts of service. Like, I think as a lot of mothers can attest to that. I feel like if you have nice, clean, folded laundry on the bed and it's put away, or like even my husband, like, I'll like notice that he's out of shampoo and I'll get him more shampoo, and I'll expect this Louise, like, New Orleans style parade for me, where I'm like, where's the appreciation? He's like, dude, that is, and he's openly said, like, he's mature enough to know, like, that is not my love language. Like, I appreciate it, but I don't feel like how you feel when you give it.
It's invisible work that we're doing, invisible emotional load, right? And physical work that people don't, they just open their drawer and their clothes are in there. They don't give a thought to how they got in there.
That he was like, he had a eighth of shampoo left, and I pre-ordered that ish. I didn't wait till he was out. He had it ready, because I love him that much.
If you ask me how many sleeping pills my partner has, because he needs one every night, I could tell you exactly how many he has, because I know to refill them before he runs out. If we got to bed and he opened the bottle and it was empty, I mean, I would never let it get to that point.
Have to die and leave this planet for us to be truly appreciated as creatures, us invisible love givers. So anyway, that's totally a
different topic.
But it also can build up resentment, which can cause arguments, because people don't receive and give love languages in the same way. And even though if he were to like clean the dishwasher, or like clean the kitchen and empty the dishwasher, Like, I would love that, but I don't know if it would be my love language I'd want to receive. I just feel like if I'm giving it, I should be getting some love
Yeah.
back for it. But that's not him. So, you've got to just speak your mind in a way where you're trying to get your point across in a way that isn't a personal attack. And it's the thing we learn when we start relationships, when we're, adolescents, and we learn as we grow, and it's an ongoing process of learning, because we change, and sometimes our partners change, which means our argument styles change, so it's a wacky world, this argument style, but it's cool once you know once you know yours, you can go into situations with a bit more clarity, you know.
Well, the next one is I've been guilty of this in the past. I think I've gotten much better about it, but it's called withdrawing. And it's basically what it sounds like when you respond in a negative way by pulling back and either just going silent, leaving, I'm going to go take a walk and cool down, or giving the silent treatment, or just ending the conversation. And not ending the conversation, because sometimes the healthiest thing we can do when emotions are high is to say, I'm going to press hold on this, press pause, and we'll revisit it when we're all a little bit calmer. There's nothing wrong with that. But withdrawing is something very different. Withdrawing is just refusing to engage and refusing to respond. It's not great. It doesn't escalate the situation, which is the point of it, I think. I mean, I've been in situations in my life with attacking people who had attacking argument style. So my response to that is to withdraw, because to me, that's the safest response. Just shut down. But it doesn't resolve the underlying issue that you're trying to resolve. It just stops the conversation completely, which is just as unproductive, I guess.
Yeah. See, Dan and I are both attacking style, but then once that situation has occurred, he's also withdrawal. And I feel like, to me, I see it as like control, like emotional control. Like, he knows that when we're upset, that my comfort zone is to get like comforted and to know that everything's okay. So for him to withhold that from me feels to me like control, like when he's ready to talk about it. But to him, he feels attacked and not heard. And so he does nothing but shut down. It's not like he's doing it to hurt me. Sometimes maybe a little bit, but he's told me in the past, I'm not shutting down from you because I want to. I just don't feel like you heard me at all. And I feel really attacked. And so my natural defense is to shut down.
That's me. So, with me, it's a self-preservation and protection thing. I withdraw. If my boundaries get crossed, I withdraw completely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my partner will say the same. He thinks it's like a punishment, like a silent treatment. And maybe to some extent it is, because I am waiting for kind of like not an apology necessarily, but at least some ownership of the boundaries being crossed. But I can have lots of conflict conversations and not withdraw. The withdrawal comes from when a boundary is crossed. So because rather than continue on a conversation that has become unhealthy, I just shut down. Now, I don't know, that's why.
But to me, that's interesting, because then you realize that the person is not like this big scary bear that's using your feelings as a weapon. They're really just like a sad, hurt little bunny that feels attacked themselves. And it completely shifts your perspective of your partner, because a lot of us from the other end feels, and it doesn't make it feel better, but it does make it feel like they're not using what we can sometimes see as our weakness against us, which is that needing to get like that hug and that feeling like everything's okay. If you're not at a place that there yet and you're withdrawn, you can't force that connection back. And so sometimes we feel like you're using it as a weapon, when really it's just because you feel wounded yourself.
I feel unsafe in that situation.
Feel wounded yourself. And it totally changes how you perceive your partner and how you move forward with it. And because sometimes one wall being built up equals an equally tall, if not taller, wall on the other side being built up, which I've listened to. Man, this feels so personal. I've listened to enough of I'm, I know therapy is very available, but this was, I've had problems like this with argument styles and having issues and then getting worse because of bad argument styles, where I find podcasts just like these, but ones that are, marriage specific, very, very helpful and insightful. And when I listen to these and I realize that the best thing to do in moments like that is to just focus on yourself and work on yourself, because the last thing that somebody who's withdrawn wants to see is somebody like crawling back and trying to get that attention before they're ready to give it, because they're already hurt. So the best thing to do is just focus on doing your own thing, and not necessarily building a wall, but focusing on you for a little bit, and naturally they'll come back around. By they, I mean the withdrawn individual. But trying to force back a conversation or continue an argument once somebody's withdrawn is only going to cause further frustration on both ends.
That's exactly it. If I withdraw and the person continues to try to engage with me in a argumental style, I will actually physically leave.
Even what if it's an empathetic style? What if they start to try and get you to like resolve before you're ready to resolve, if you're not ready there yet? Does that annoy you?
If there's a responsibility being taken for whatever was hurtful that was said, then I'm a very fast forgiver. So if somebody says, 5 minutes after they say something, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, I immediately let it go and never bring it up again. But I need to hear that. I'm not one of those people who wakes up the next morning and act like nothing happened. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say I hold on to things, but if they feel unresolved to me, because I don't say things very often that I don't mean. So when somebody says something to me, I assume that they mean it. Mm-hmm. It's taken me a long time to realize that, like, my partner says things sometimes in the heat of an argument that he does not mean. Mm-hmm. And what has helped us is this next communication style of being open. One thing that you hear therapists say all the time is that when you're having an argument with especially a romantic partner, to repeat back to them what they're saying, so that they know that they feel heard. Well, that is a fantastic trick.
That's just a really good sales tactic too, by the way. If you're ever in an interview or in like a sales conversation, if you can repeat back to them what you think that they're looking for, like if you can repeat it in a way where it's just the same thing regurgitated, it's so great, because the person, no matter if it's a sales or an argument, they feel freaking seen and they feel freaking heard. And it's like, it's so great, if it's done in a way where it doesn't feel like annoying,
So if somebody is telling you that something is bothering them, and you can respond by saying, I'm hearing you say this, and then they're like, wow, they're hearing me, the conversation is so much more productive. But here is something else with this that I don't think everyone thinks of. If you have a partner or someone in your life who has the attacking argument style, or there's also an argument style called invalidation, where they invalidate what you're saying or kind of like gaslight you a little bit. If you have either of those kind of styles that you're dealing with, repeating back is life-changing. So if my partner in the heat of an argument says something that feels like a personal attack to me, and I say, what I'm hearing you say is, and then whatever negative thing that person just said about me, they didn't even realize what was coming out of their mouth. And for me to repeat it back to them, they're not going to say, yeah, I think that, because they don't. They're going to say, no, I didn't mean that. And that helps to move the conversation forward, because otherwise I'm going to be stuck on, I think he just called me stupid or whatever it was,
For my partner, it's really like, once he says something from the heart, he almost wants to hear what you just said right away. So he knows that I heard him. If I immediately respond with something I'm feeling, then it's like, did you not hear anything? I just said stuff about how I feel. And that will cause an argument within the argument, because he's just not feeling heard. So using that tactic with somebody who is somewhat of an attack style argument, that's their style, it really helps smooth. And it also smooths out wrinkles, because if I'm repeating back something that is so not what he meant, then we can work it out there rather than assuming and moving forward.
Right. Because one of the invalidating argument styles is to bring up old stuff that you thought was resolved, and like old arguments that you've had, old mistakes that you've made, or personal faults and flaws that you are sensitive about, or that is on the table that you have,
Yep.
that's an invalidating argument style, and it's not healthy. But if somebody has that reaction, one of the ways that you can help them to work their way out of that argument style is to repeat what they said. So if they bring up, well, yeah, maybe I didn't do that, but 3 months ago, remember when you did this? And you say, well, what I'm hearing is that we haven't resolved that issue and that you're still hurt about that or something. And that, changes the dynamics of the conversation from most people's reaction, and it would be normal, would become defensive and be like, you can't bring up that's old. I already said I'm sorry. Like, all of that is true. All of that is true.
Because it flips it back on them. Because really, is it about that, or are you using that easy target as a weapon and a pawn in this conversation to try and gain like the upper hand? Because people will do that. It's an easy thing to do, especially if you're in a relationship where you're working on something like infidelity or money, issues, and you're trying to show that you can be trusted again. It's easy to bring up old stuff. So
a lot of people who've had partners who've made a big mistake, and I've made big mistakes in my life. Most people have. If their partner wants to use that as a get out of jail free card, and everything that else that goes wrong is well, you can't say anything because you did this. It is it's a roadblock. Your relationship will not be able to progress if they can't let that roadblock go. And you guys obviously need to do more work on that one thing, because it's not productive. Again, I keep using that word productive, but you won't be able to resolve whatever the conflict of today is if the conflict of 3 years ago is still unresolved, because it's going to keep
it makes them think about it. Am I using this as like art, like a weapon in my Rolodex that I have, or am I truly not over this? Because sometimes it's just an easy thing to say in the heat of the moment when you don't mean it, because it's there and it's in the forefront of your mind, but you're actually probably over it, but it's an easy pick, or are you really not over it? So when you flip it around and bring it in a question style, it makes the person actually like think for a moment. It's unexpected and very mature, and not the norm. Like you said, most people will defend and be defensive, understandably so, and that's what they're looking for. By the way, you gave them what they were looking for. So
because we all want to feel heard, we all want to feel seen, we all want to know that our needs are important to other people in our lives, just as we put their needs forward all the time. We want to know that there's some reciprocation there. That's normal. But the open style of arguing, which is what we should all kind of be striving for, is an argument style that's one of resolving conflict. So it looks at whatever the conflict is from all the different angles, and then it works like a cooperative project, just like a work project would, where the two of you are a team working to resolve a specific conflict. And it's not personal, it's not attacking, it's not it's a communication and an actual conversation about resolving one specific conflict, not past conflicts, not potential future conflicts, but the one at hand today. And it's a cooperative project, and that makes all the difference. It's very difficult to have both people in the relationship get to that point together.
Sometimes it can just start with one person deciding that. For me, I just was over it. I just got tired of fighting the same way and not feeling like I was moving the needle at all, and not feeling heard and not feeling understood, but also being understanding and smart enough to realize that like I'm in a relationship with another person who might be feeling that way too. So just doing some self-help and wanting to shift how I approach arguments. Sometimes just going into the argument with a bit more of like a level head will naturally tip the other person to sway that way.
Absolutely.
We've gotten there over time. Dan, I've sent him podcast links. I don't think he listens to them. But when I first started doing this, I was like, I would hear something and be like, hello, you need to hear this. But I think just me working on myself and working on how I approach a problem and how I explain a problem has naturally tipped him into coming more towards that open-minded, where we're like both going towards the problem and not each other. sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it just takes, like me, just being straight over this, because it's easier just to get divorced or split up or move on. But like, that doesn't solve you or save you from the next relationship you're in and the same argument style issues you have, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and at the end of the day, we don't want to hurt the people that we love. We don't want to hurt the people closest to us. And if we know that our behavior is causing them pain, it should motivate us to make those changes. They're not easy. No change ever is. Things become habits, like we talked about in the beginning. But it's worth it to have a relationship that you feel, you and your partner both feel safe coming to each other with conflicts and problems, and working as a team, and building a much stronger and deeper connection, because that's the basis of something that's going to last for the rest of your lives. Because I mean, honestly, if you don't have a cooperative friendship with your partner first before you have the romantic side, there's no longevity.
Absolutely. And go into these moments, just listen to the other person. Don't go in and preparing to talk yourself. Just listen to the other person's perspective, and you may hear something that might change how you approach what you're about to say. But it's like, it's so toxic, and it's so hard when the moment is in the moment, to really calm down and be like, well, my argument style is this, and I want to aim towards this. We all want open argument conversation. We all want that, right? It just requires you shifting how you speak, because really it's just how we're hearing the things that are being said to us that really change how we respond and how we answer back,
Yeah. And again, it's okay to press pause on things if someone gets a little emotional or heated. When I say emotional, I know that's something that mostly men, they really have a problem when you tell them they're being emotional, but anger is an emotion. So if you need to press pause on the conversation and step away, and that could even be, say you don't have an attacking argument style, maybe you're defensive. If somebody just said, hey, what you're doing is making me upset. You're never doing this. You're always doing this. And my response, my knee-jerk reaction is going to be to jump in and say, that's not fair. Maybe I should say, you know what, can you give me a little bit of time to process what I want to understand what you said. Can I process that? And we can talk about it later tonight or whatever. And give yourself time to really explore what they said and take whatever percentage of responsibility is real there, so that you can make changes to make your relationship better, and that they will then come back to them later and be like, I thought about what you said. And maybe it was overly harsh or whatever, but I thought about it, and you're right. I could be doing better at this. I'm going to work on this. And these are the steps I'm going to take to try to make this better for you. And for us, that's much more productive than just responding with, that's not fair. You never see what I do, whatever the argument's about. Having that knee-jerk defensive reaction doesn't inspire change. Obviously, if you're going to be defensive and say you have nothing to change, then the conversation is over. The person who came to you doesn't feel heard, doesn't feel seen. The problem's not going to resolve itself. Nothing's going to change. And 3 months from now, you'll be having the word for word same conversation again.
Yeah, no, and it goes to that same thing we learn in when we're super, super little, is treat others as you want to be treated. If you had a problem that you truly were feeling really upset about, and you came to your partner, and your partner's immediate response was to defend and to deflect and to not take any responsibility, how would that make you feel? And as hard as it is, especially when you're feeling angry and emotional, if you go into every single situation with I want to treat my partner the way I would want them treated if the situation was flipped, then a lot of hurt would be avoided, because we never want to be yelled at. We never want to be attacked. We never want to be, blamed for things that aren't true. We always want to be heard. But yet when we're doing it to our partner, we feel validated to do all those things because we're hurt,
Yeah, obviously. Now, obviously, we want to understand that everybody has different conflict resolution patterns and behaviors, and we're trying to help everybody today to work towards something that's healthier. But I just want to say, if you do have that attacking style and your attacking style hits below the belt and you get personal and you do the gaslighting and the ridiculing thing, I'm not passing judgment on that. I mean, I've been that person at times in my life. But I just want to say that our homes should be a safe space for everybody living there. And if you wouldn't expect your partner to accept that kind of behavior from someone else, his boss, his ex, his mom, like whatever.
Yeah.
Why should they make an exception for you?
Absolutely.
You should not give yourself permission to speak to the people closest to you that way in your home, which is supposed to be a sanctuary for everyone who lives there. So I would just give some time to, if that's a struggle for you, and I know a lot of times it is, a lot of us were raised in unhealthy conversational pattern homes, and it's what we saw growing up. So it is something that feels normal to us, but it's very hurtful, and it's not great for kids to see, and it's not great for the deep connection of a relationship. So I would just strongly urge you to press pause before you get to that point. You can always talk about things later. Nothing has to be resolved in that exact moment. Therapy is great, a great, safe, referee style time to talk about subjects that are heated. But that kind of conversational style, again, if you cross boundaries with your partner often enough, there's no boundaries left, right? Exactly. And it's really emotionally damaging, and we don't want to be the ones who emotionally damage the people closest to us. Life will do that on its own.
Yeah,
life is hard enough.
I think it takes like the core realization that all of us are not perfect. Not one of us is perfect. And every single time there's an argument between two people, rarely, if not ever, is it like 100% somebody's fault. There's always some room for improvement within ourselves. And in moments when I was getting nowhere with my partner and I felt like there was nothing I could do about that situation, the one thing that did find me comfort, and I keep coming back to the podcast thing, was knowing that I could always improve myself. Even if it was by 5%, I can improve myself. I knew there was something that I was doing consecutively and consistently within our argument patterns that was bringing this to a negative place that I knew I could fix somewhere, so simply by working on what I could fix and what I could control, which was myself, did bring me comfort, because I know at least I got 50% of the way there, and working on myself and working on how I went about arguments and how I went about communicating my problems and communicating my issues, especially when I'm not using my brain, I'm using just my emotions to come across, because I never want to hurt my partner. And yet somehow I always end up hurting him. So fixing those parts within myself actually really brought us together and strengthened our argument styles collectively, because just working on yourself is like a lot of work already. Like start there, like don't worry about what your partner's not doing right. It may frustrate you, but you can always work on yourself.
Yeah. And if your partner isn't willing to go to therapy with you, go on your own. Because the difference that you'll make in yourself will be reflected back at you. And or you'll make a decision that you're not in the right space, and that's okay too. But you should get, again, podcasts, self-improvement books,
a therapist yourself. Yeah.
Right.
They're all great tools.
Yeah. Just continually working towards the version of ourselves that we want to be is the goal in all of this. So if you've recognized one of your argument styles in today's episode, hopefully it was the open style. I'm still
hopefully
working
we're all
on that
just
myself.
Such perfect people out there. Is it weird that like, can you be like all of the above at times? Because I feel like in moments I attack, in moments I defend, in moments I withdraw, in moments I, and none of them are good. This is not a highlight reel of my best moments, but
no,
I feel like in moments, depending on what is going on and what is being presented in front of me, am I the one with the problem? Am I the one now in a problem because someone's presented it to me? You could be different argument styles in the argument, and the end result is to do it in a healthy way.
And some people are only defensive when they're confronted with an attacking argument
Yes.
style. Some people only withdraw. Like I am an open arguer unless I feel attacked, and then I withdraw.
Yeah.
So yes, you can be more than one. But if you take a proactive approach to move towards an open and productive way of arguing and conflict resolution, it will help the other person navigate their way there as well, because they won't have anything to respond to.
No.
So yeah, I mean, not to put all the responsibility on you, but you're the one listening to this podcast.
You have a lot. Here's the thing is, in moments where we really want control, in arguments, we want to feel like we have the upper hand. This is something you have the upper hand on. You have the upper hand on being like an argument, like, monk, you could just like, swish through any argument and do it with complete and total mental clarity, where you're not going down to their level or being less than what you want to be. Because oftentimes we leave an argument and going, wow, that was like a version of myself I did not want to come out, and
Right.
we almost feel really guilty because we saw a version of ourselves we were not proud of at the same time. So you have a lot of control in it just by working on yourself, understanding yourself, listening to podcasts like this, listening to other podcasts, because you can't move your partner forward if they're not willing to move forward.
Right. And once you get to the point where you feel like you're kind of emotionally gifted in that sense, and you've progressed, then, if it's easy when both people escalate the situation for them both to say, well, she said all these terrible things, so I said all those terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine.
You got nothing on me, right?
Right. But when you've moved into the open communication style, and you're letting them know that you're hearing what they have to say, and what they have to say is important to you, and you're using all of the tools in your toolbox, and if their behavior continues to be the attacking, gaslighting, invalidation, then that might be time, if they're not willing to go to therapy with you, that might be time to say that it's not a healthy dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's an individual thing.
But at least you have the mental clarity to see that versus letting emotions take over.
The first step is to remove your own argument style that's unhealthy, get to the open argument style, and remove things that might be triggering for that person. And then see that might resolve it all. Now you might have just happy, calm communications at all times. I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Or just more clarity of realizing that you are not crazy. It is not your fault. And when your partner attacks, it's natural to feel defensive. And this is how you approach it. Like sometimes we just chalk it up to like, I just must be crazy. I just must be dramatic. I just must be the problem. I might be overthinking it. Because in those moments when we're being attacked, the person can totally gaslight and shift the conversation into us feeling like we're the problem.
Yeah.
So just further understanding my partner is this way, and this is how I respond to it. Is this good? Just, you have to be, you are with yourself more than anyone else. And the more you look after yourself, the better. You know?
And this whole discussion is not necessarily about changing any other person's behavior. No. This is about changing your behavior so that when you look in the mirror, you see somebody whose behavior you're proud of, and whose communication style you're comfortable with, and that you're not doing things that cross your internal boundaries of who you want to be and who you see yourself as. If you're behaving in a way that's in conflict with who you think you are and who you'd like to be, that's what we're talking about. It may or may not change the other person's argument style, but you will be able to sleep at night knowing that you did not cross boundaries for yourself or for anyone that you care about.
Yeah. There's a lot of just question marks and confusion, especially if the problem isn't resolved right away, or if maybe the problem isn't resolved in a way where you feel completely satisfied, like knowing yourself and feeling like you have control over certain things just really makes you feel more, like in love with yourself, because
absolutely
you let relationships and how the relationship is going kind of guide how you handle your life. That'll be rocky. You got to love yourself first. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys again for coming back week after week and having these discussions with us. I feel like I always learn something, so hopefully everyone else does too. But we would love to hear about the work you guys are doing on your conflict resolution skills, your argument style. if you've read the book we talked about, Atomic Habits, we'd love to hear your take on that. That was such a good one. But yeah, you can always go to Facebook, search She's a Full-On Monet, and our discussion group is attached to our page. So if you want to talk about this further, that's a great place to do it. This article is also coming out, so if you want to comment on the article too, that would be great. We love to hear you guys' feedback.
Yep.
And thank you guys again for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, it helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.